Hi, I'm Judith from His Unmeasured Grace, and today I'm going to talk to you about Abigail's courage and honor to do right in God's sight. And Abigail is someone that I have really enjoyed reading about over the years, and she has been a great encouragement to me. So I hope that her life will be a huge encouragement to you as well. So Abigail had the courage and honor to do right, although Nabal dishonored David's men who safeguarded his land and livestock. So David's men protected Nabal and his land. He was a rich man, and his livestock. And then Nabal turned around and wouldn't do anything to help them, wouldn't feed them, wouldn't pay them any compensation to say thanks for what he did. And it made David quite upset. And if you can go back and read the story, it's in 1 Samuel 25. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I assume you either remember it. I don't always remember when I haven't actually just read it. I don't remember every detail, but you can go back and read it and remind yourself. And I hope this is an encouragement for you to have courage and honor like Abigail did. Now, this is on this YouTube, which you'll also find in the blog post. You can read about it. And I hope that maybe sometimes seeing it will work better for you. So, Abigail, like I said, demonstrated courage and honor as she behaved with wisdom and righteousness to save her household from Nabal's folly. Nabal's name means folly and foolishness, things like that. And the story of Abigail, as told in 1 Samuel 25, is a powerful example of wisdom, courage, and devotion to doing what is right in God's sight. And that's what I want to encourage you to do as a woman who loves God, and that I will encourage you through this to also do what's right. And sometimes our circumstances can be quite hard. And it's when my circumstances were really difficult, it's when I found the courage, or that I found her story, Abigail's story, very encouraging to my heart. Because it would seem like she shouldn't have done some of the things that she did, because it wouldn't be submissive to Nabal's his wishes and his commands. And I'm hoping that through the story you will see that Abigail did go against what Nabal wanted in a way that was discreet, behind the scenes, that still honored Nabal and protected their land and property and things like that. So though her husband Nabal chose to behave cruelly, foolishly, kind of gives me the idea that maybe he didn't always act in a wise, right, godly way towards Abigail. And maybe he verbally abused her. Maybe he actually physically abused her. Whatever the case, it doesn't sound like if he acted like that to other people, he might not have been acting right towards her. But the Bible doesn't really go into that. And I think sometimes that's so we can leave room for our situation as minor or as more extreme than hers, and how we can find encouragement. I am in no way giving advice to people that are in extreme circumstances. There are ways pastors can direct you to the right kind of person for counseling and help with that. So in 1 Samuel 25, verse 3, it says, "Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved." One of the things that we want our children to do when they grow up is to behave in the right way. We don't want them to behave badly as adults. That's why we teach them when they're young. But once they grow up, we have no control over that. So Nabal's harshness and foolishness, Nabal's behavior demonstrated the opposite of courage and honor towards David's men. It's opposite of the way Abigail behaved. And Nabal, whose very name means fool, Can you imagine having a name like that? It exemplifies the character that he had. It was driven by self-centeredness and harshness. Probably he was just blunt and harsh in everything he said and didn't care about other people's feelings. When David's men approached Nabal with a peaceful request, he responded scornfully, forgetting how they had safeguarded and protected his land and livestock. He didn't even think of that. And Nabal's pride and short-sightedness insulted David. David was the king, and it jeopardized Nabal's whole entire household, revealing the depth of his foolish character. Now, in my blog post, you'll also find my journaling art. Often I include journaling art in my blog posts, so it's worth opening up. And I also share a devotional 5 days a week in Jesus Journaling on Facebook. It's a private group for anybody who wants to join. Okay, so acting with courage and honor despite cultural expectations. So Abigail's actions highlighted her courage and honor to do right, even in a difficult situation. It definitely went against her culture because women were often not given that right to step out and do stuff that would not be against what her husband's wishes were. She dared to intervene in a situation that was culturally and personally challenging. Okay, in 1 Samuel 25:18 through 19, it says, Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 seahs of parched grain and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her young men, Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she did not tell her husband. And sometimes it's okay to not tell our husband something that we're doing that's good. And I would say most of the time we should check with our husbands. It's a safeguard that's a good thing. And obviously I think you can see in this situation that it wasn't a good situation for their home, their household, their land, their property, and they could have lost all of that because David could have come down on him hard. He had a right to do that as king. By secretly preparing an offering of food for David and his men, she demonstrated both courage and honor because it was possible that her husband could come down on her hard for doing that. And so it was also a hospitable, gracious thing to do for David's men to show them that they were appreciated. They were hungry. And men that are in the military to protect David, they could lose their strength in a situation like that. So Abigail's act of taking 200, think about it, 200 loaves, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already prepared, and 200 cakes of figs shows her commitment to reconciliation between David and Nabal and her household, and her willingness to honor David's men despite Nabal's insult. Okay, so Abigail showed wisdom in her actions, and her decision to approach David displays her understanding and timing of diplomacy. She knew the timing. She knew the words and the things to do, and she knows that food speaks to men's hearts and would just solve the situation. She did not wait for her husband's consent, which would have been culturally required, but acted swiftly to prevent a crisis. So if she had waited to that point, Nabal would have said no. And sometimes in a situation like that, if you ask a husband, that type of husband, something like that, when you know that they're going to say no, then you have to honor that. So what she did is that she went and prepared all this and took it to David and told her husband afterwards, after the fact. And by doing so, she saved her household and just showed wisdom, humility, courage, and honor. Her actions spoke of her faith in God and her belief in doing what was right, regardless of the immediate consequences. Nabal could have, like, done horrible things to her. Okay, reflecting on Abigail's example, what do we think about this? The story of Abigail has an inspiration to me. I told you, it was something that encouraged my heart for many years, still does. And it shows the righteousness sometimes required in going against the grain, especially when she lives, when the lives or principles of God are at stake. Because Nabal wasn't living according to the principles of God, and what he was doing was just honoring David and his men. And that isn't something that God would have wanted. So Abigail's courage and insight continue to offer encouragement as a model of integrity, wisdom, and discernment to us, to always do things with discernment and wisdom, whether we're in a situation that's a bad situation or not. We still could act unwise and not honoring to our husbands. And even though maybe our husband is such a kind man that he wouldn't act wrong to us, we still need to have Abigail's courage and honor to do what is right. So in the face of a challenging situation, she chose the path of peace and honor, serving as a timeless example, because it still is an example that speaks to our heart today, so many thousands of years afterwards. And it shows righteousness, blind obedience when she didn't know what the outcome would be. So her actions exemplify a life lived with discernment and commitment to God's values, even when faced with difficult situations. I have been encouraged by Abigail's life, and I hope that Abigail's wisdom will encourage you to do right in God's sight, no matter what your circumstances, whether they're good or whether they're kind of hard at this point. Maybe it's even not a situation between you and your husband. Maybe it's a totally different, maybe it's a work situation, and maybe it's a medical situation, and you still need to have wisdom and be encouraged to do right. So thank you, and I hope you go visit the blog post. If you're watching this on YouTube, it will be in the description notes.